7 Things You Must Remove from Your Life Without Telling Anyone. Andrew Carnegie. There are decisions that change your life, but no one notices the day you make them. Andrew Carnegie believed the most powerful transformations don't begin with announcements. They begin in silence. The world celebrates visible change. A new position, a new car, a new house, a new title. But Carnegie said the real level up happens long before that. It happens inside the mind, away from the eyes of others. He watched men grow rich, rise, become leaders, and he also saw others with the same talent, the same opportunities, the same ability stay behind. The difference wasn't what they added to their lives. It was what they had the courage to remove. And the most important detail, they removed it in silence. No announcements, no posting, no speeches, no need for applause. Because Carnegie said that when you talk too much about your changes, you spend energy trying to look like someone you haven't yet become. But when you change in silence, you become. And today you're going to understand the 7 things that, if you quietly remove them from your life, your reality begins to reorganize. Not by luck, not by miracle, but by mental alignment. 1. Remove the need for approval. This is the first invisible prison. Carnegie said most men don't fail from lack of ability, but from fear of displeasing others. They think, what will they think? What if they don't like it? What if they talk about me? And without realizing it, they start living according to other people's standards. A mind that seeks approval is never free. It calculates every move based on external acceptance. But Carnegie believed real growth requires moments of misunderstanding. When you start evolving, some people feel threatened. Others feel left behind. Others simply don't understand. And if you stop to explain every step, you stop moving. He said those who are busy building don't have time to convince. So the removal is silent. You stop justifying your choices. You stop explaining your routine. You stop defending your focus. You stop shrinking your ambition to fit someone else's comfort. And something powerful happens. Your mind stops dividing energy between building and explaining. Now it builds fully. 2. Remove conversations that weaken your mind. Carnegie was extremely selective about what he listened to. He knew the mind doesn't just absorb information, it absorbs emotional states. If you spend too much time around people who only talk about problems, failures, complaints, injustice, fear, limitations, your mind starts normalizing that. You begin to think small without noticing. Carnegie said environments don't just reflect your thinking, they shape it. And here's the delicate part. You don't need to fight. You don't need to announce distance. You don't need to explain. You simply reduce exposure. Less time, less depth, less influence. This is not rejection. It's mental preservation. Because no one builds a prosperous mind while drowning in scarcity conversations. 3. Remove the impulse to react to everything. Most people live in constant reaction. A message comes, react. A problem appears, react. Criticism shows up, react. Bad news, react. Carnegie said those who live reacting live mentally exhausted and always behind. Because reaction is movement without direction. He trained his mind to pause. He understood the first response is usually emotional, and uncontrolled emotion is expensive. When someone provoked him, he didn't answer immediately. When a problem appeared, he didn't panic. When criticized, he didn't defend himself automatically. He observed. That pause created advantage. While others got lost in impulses, he decided with strategy. You don't need to respond to every opinion. You don't need to react to every provocation. You don't need to solve everything instantly. When you remove the addiction to immediate reaction, your mind leaves chaos and enters command. 4. Remove the habit of consuming more than you build. Carnegie said most people are mentally full, but empty of creation. Information all the time. Videos all the time. News all the time. Entertainment all the time. The mind is stimulated, but not strengthened. Those who prosper do the opposite. They consume with intention and build with obsession. You don't need to announce the change. You simply replace. 1 hour of distraction, 1 hour of useful study. escape time, planning time, excess entertainment, strategic reflection. Little by little, your mind stops being a spectator and becomes a creator. 5. Remove the fear of being seen as different. Every level up creates discomfort. Carnegie said when a man begins rising, he changes how he speaks, thinks, uses time, and positions himself. And that unsettles those who chose to stay the same. Some will say you've changed, that you're distant, that you're not the same. He said something powerful. The fear of looking different keeps men average. You don't need to argue. You don't need to explain. You don't need to shrink your vision. Silently continue. 6. Remove procrastination from decisions you already know you must make. Carnegie said the mind weakens every time you promise yourself something and don't follow through. That conversation you avoid. That habit you know you must cut. That step you already know you must take. You know, but you delay. Every delay is an internal crack. Over time, those cracks become self-sabotage. Don't announce the change. Just act. 7. Remove the survival mentality. Carnegie said many live as if they are always trying not to lose, instead of trying to build. They think small. Ask for little. Accept less than their worth. This mentality doesn't always show externally, but it controls every decision. Removing it is an internal shift. You begin acting like someone building a future, not just surviving the present. And life begins responding differently. Why must all this be done in silence? Because when you talk too much, you lose energy. When you announce, you seek validation. When you explain, you weaken resolve. Carnegie said, silent changes create loud results. Andrew Carnegie believed that removing these 7 things doesn't just change your routine. It changes who you become. And when identity changes, reality adjusts. Most people try to grow by adding things. More effort, more work, more goals, more tasks. But Carnegie saw the opposite. He said the real leap happens when the mind stops carrying unnecessary weight. Because an overloaded mind does not build greatness, it only survives. What happens after you make these removals? Something silent, but irreversible. You begin to notice that you no longer feel the need to prove anything. You are no longer drained by negative people. You no longer get involved in useless arguments. You no longer feel urgency to respond to everything. You no longer feel guilty for being focused. This is not coldness. It is mental maturity. Carnegie said strong men are not those who speak loudly. They are those who are not moved by everything. And this creates a dangerous shift for those around you. You become unpredictable to people who depended on your old patterns. The psychology behind silent change. Carnegie understood something psychology now confirms. When you announce a change, you receive emotional reward before the result exists. And that tricks the brain. He said when you talk too much about what you will do, you feel the sensation of achievement without having done anything. That reduces action. But when you change in silence, all your energy goes into building. No distraction. No vanity. No performance. You are not trying to look better. You are becoming. What these removals do to your mind. They create 3 powerful transformations. 1. Clarity. When you stop explaining yourself, reacting to everything, consuming excess, and listening to negativity, your mind slows down. And a slowed mind sees patterns. You begin to notice where you waste time, where you sabotage yourself, who strengthens you, who weakens you, what truly matters. Clarity is power. Carnegie said confused people live tired, clear people live focused. 2. Inner strength. When you remove the need for approval, you stop being emotionally hostage. Now decisions are not based on acceptance, but on direction. This creates a new feeling. Mental autonomy. And that is rare. Most people live emotionally attached to others. Opinions affect them. Comments shake them. Criticism knocks them down. But when you silently remove that dependence, something happens. You begin acting based on what builds your future, not what protects your ego. 3. Consistency. When you remove mental distractions, you don't need motivation to act. You act because it makes sense. Carnegie said men who prosper do not depend on emotional peaks. They depend on mental structure. And mental structure is born from elimination, not accumulation. Why most people never do this? Because these removals require something few want to face. The discomfort of growth. When you stop seeking approval, some people drift away. When you stop engaging in negative conversations, you feel out of place. When you stop reacting, you seem distant. When you stop explaining yourself, you seem arrogant. But Carnegie said, maturity is often misunderstood by those who haven't reached it yet. And here is the decisive point. If you return to old patterns to keep acceptance, you trade growth for comfort, the new identity that emerges. After these removals, you don't feel motivated. You feel aligned. And alignment is far more powerful. You wake up knowing what matters. Your time becomes more valuable. Your attention becomes more protected. Your thinking becomes more strategic. And without noticing, you become someone who does not get involved in drama, does not react impulsively, is not distracted by everything, does not feel the need to justify themselves, does not live seeking validation. This is not coldness. It is internal leadership. And Carnegie said that those who do not lead their own mind will be led by the world. The invisible effect of these changes. You may not see it immediately, but weeks later, your productivity changes. Your energy changes. Your focus changes. Your decision-making pattern changes. And then, months later, different opportunities begin to appear. Not because the world changed, but because your mind changed the kind of opportunities you recognize. Carnegie said the world responds to the mental pattern you sustain. When your mind stops operating in survival mode, it begins operating in building mode. And here is the final phrase Carnegie would leave you with. Do not announce that you are changing. Change. Do not explain your focus. Build. Do not prove you have evolved. Evolve. Because when the change is real, the results speak, even if you never say a word. Andrew Carnegie said that most people try to change their lives without changing the internal pattern that keeps their lives exactly the same. They want new results, but keep the same environments, the same conversations, the same emotional habits. And this creates an invisible cycle. Life changes on the outside for a while, but always returns to the same level. That is why Carnegie spoke about removing things without announcing it. Because the announcement is ego. The removal is identity. What begins to happen after a few weeks of doing this? You notice something interesting. You start having fewer conflicts, less emotional exhaustion, less artificial urgency, but at the same time, more focus, more useful time, more clarity, more control. And this doesn't happen because you did something extraordinary. It happens because you stopped feeding what was weakening you. Carnegie said many people are not tired from what they do. They are tired from what they tolerate. Removal changes your perception of the world. When you stop engaging with negativity, you begin to notice opportunities you used to ignore. Not because they appeared now, but because your mind is no longer busy reacting. Carnegie said, a reactive mind does not build. It only survives. But when you remove emotional distractions, your mind enters a strategic state. And that is when better decisions begin to appear. You begin to say no more easily. This is a direct consequence of these removals. Before you said yes to avoid displeasing others. Yes to avoid seeming selfish. Yes to avoid feeling excluded. Now you say yes only to what builds your future. Carnegie said the quality of your life is determined by the quality of your no's. The more you grow, the more you must protect your time, energy, and attention. Silence becomes your advantage. Most people want to be seen changing. You will be busy actually changing. Carnegie observed that people who grow in silence create something very powerful. Unpredictability. No one knows exactly what you are doing. No one knows your next step. No one tracks your internal adjustments. And that protects you from comparisons, interference, and external sabotage. You don't need to defend your vision. You just need to build it. Your emotional pattern begins to stabilize. This is one of the biggest signs that you are evolving. Things that used to shake you now pass. Comments pass. Criticism passes. Small problems pass. Not because you became indifferent, but because your mind stopped treating everything as urgent. Carnegie said mental maturity is knowing what deserves energy and what is not. You begin to live with intention, no longer on autopilot. Every choice begins to have direction. Who you talk to, what you consume, where you invest your time, how you react. Nothing is random anymore. And this creates a different feeling about life. Less chaos, more command. Carnegie believed that people who master their minds are not controlled by circumstances. They respond to them strategically. The world begins to treat you differently. This is an effect few notice. When you change your internal pattern, your behavior changes. Your posture changes. Your communication changes. Your decision-making changes. And people begin to perceive it. Some come closer. Others move away. But Carnegie said this is natural. Growth is not about keeping everyone around. It is about aligning those who stay with who you are becoming. You stop feeling behind. That feeling disappears. Because now you are building, not just reacting. Carnegie said those who live reacting always feel behind. Those who live building know they are in the process. And that brings mental peace. You realize you don't need constant motivation. This is a sign of mental structure. You no longer act because you feel excited. You act because you decided who you want to be. An identity sustains actions when emotions fail. Carnegie said discipline is the bridge between who you are today and who you want to become. The greatest effect of all, you begin to trust yourself. Every time you fulfill a silent decision, your mind registers. I do what I say. This builds internal authority. And when you trust yourself, decisions become faster, firmer, and more aligned. Doubt decreases. Action flows. And here is the truth Carnegie left implied. Most people want to change their lives, but do not want to give up the things that keep life the same. Removing is uncomfortable, but liberating. And those who make these silent removals don't just improve their lives. They become someone capable of sustaining growth when it arrives. Final reflection. You don't need to tell anyone you are changing. Real change does not make noise. It reorganizes your mind. And when the mind organizes, life aligns. Andrew Carnegie did not speak about this as a technique. He lived it as a principle. Because in the end, it is not what you add that changes your destiny. It is what you stop carrying.